Alright guys, welcome to part 1 of Psychic Force character guides I'll be working on. We are gonna start with Might. Might is a very straightforward, very basic character. He's the new protagonist. He is the new, I guess, Shoto of the game, even though Burn is in the game. But he basically replaces Burn as like the cover boy. So let's go over what he does. Let's go over some of his moves, right? So, like actually, the move's loaded up here. And that's a standard light. Like anyone else, it's just a standard light attack. Comes out pretty quickly. He has the strong attack, which is called Elect Trigger. Shoutouts to Benimaru. And this is the move that I covered in the introduction that he can actually redirect. So his trait is you hold on to the strong attack button and you let go when you want to redirect it. Generally speaking, it will always redirect in the general direction of where your opponent goes. So if you shoot this at them and they try to dodge, it will redirect towards them. At the same time, if you aim it away from them and you redirect it, it'll go to where they're at. So that's the basic premise of his long-range game. But he is more of a close-range fighter. That being said, he does have another long-range special. He has the Magnet Anchor. Right? So it's a half circle in light. And wherever you are on stage, Might can just pull you back in, connect with a throw, for a decent chunk of damage. And I believe that's the best thing he can get. See? I mean, it's arguably possible that he could maybe get more, but the throw does scale some damage. However, it's a good way to pull people in who are trying to get away from you. Next up is Lightning Hound. So this move is pretty interesting. It can cancel into itself. If you ever played Darkstalkers and you're familiar with John Talbane's Shoulder Charge, it's basically that, right? It costs 40 meter, and every time you chain, it's going to cost another 40. Now, the thing is, it can actually chain up to 3 times. So I'm actually going to hypercharge. But I'm at 120% to show you that it can chain up to 3 times. Yeah, even if you don't connect, you can still do the chain. If you manage to get all 3 hits, it'll do a decent chunk of damage. But yeah, it's one of the only specials I think you can do that with. But it has its uses, it just has a bit of startup. But it can definitely surprise people. Let's see, his next special is the Electric Sword, Lightning Sword. So this is basic B&B Ender. And it is half circle strong, right? By the way, Lightning Hound is back forward light. So yeah, half circle strong. Probably his best combo ender, and it's in general a pretty decent neutral tool, though it does have a bit of startup. But you do light, strong, and then you cancel into the sword. Actually, let me reset the status so that the damage is more accurate. 297 damage, it's respectable, it's nothing too crazy. You want to be careful. You want to be careful about your spacing with him because you should always know which ender you should go for. Like, if your wall bounce is too far away, you're probably going to end up going into Elect Trigger to get your ender combo damage. But if you're close enough, you will get the sword. Alright, and he has Thunder Break, which is his install. Cost about 45% meter. So it actually increases the range of some of his specials, and it increases the startup, I think. Yeah, so Magnet Anchor, Lightning Hound, and Excursion, which is a super, all become faster. They have better startup, and they just move quicker, and they have longer range. The sword gets a bigger hit area. So you saw right there, it's a lot wider, right? Let's see. Could be wrong. It says the sword is a bigger area, but I'll be honest with you, I don't see much difference. Being said, it is definitely wide. I think it's a wider area. I don't think it's necessarily longer. And finally, he gets Excursion, which is his super, which you can combo into pretty easily. And that is back, forward, strong. And remember, in Psychic Force, your your specials will work no matter what direction you put them in. So back, forward, forward, strong is the same as forward, back, back, strong. As long as you do the motion properly, you'll be fine. So that's pretty much it for for Might. He's very straightforward. He wants to play the close range game. He wants to connect into sword. He wants to sort of mess around with you with the Elect Trigger. And Elect Trigger is just as well a close range tool as a long range tool. Because if you do it from afar and they come in on you with a dash, the redirect, once you redirect it to them, it can come right back to you and it will hit them trying to get you. So again, very basic character, very straightforward. And we're going to take a little break in the video, and when we come back, we will cover Patty. Alright, now up next is Patty. Patty is really unique, and she's another new character introduced in Psychic Force. The big thing with her is she has her theme is sound and music and things like that. So her thing is she has this thing called Prelude. What Prelude does is her mechanic is she can leave notes around the stage. Getting a little ahead of myself here, but as we go over her special moves, we'll explain it as we go, because she can be pretty complex. So basic light attack comes out pretty fast. Actually, it's a pretty fast one. It's pretty good. Very little startup on it. Her standard strong attack is fine. It's just a decent move. It's called Holy Whisper. Sorry. And now we get to her actual mechanic, which is the Prelude keys. So you see that little orb that's flowing around Patty. If you press back, forward, and light, she'll leave that little circular thing there, right? And Patty can interact with it with any of her sound specials, aside from her light, and one special in particular that we'll get over. And I'm going to show you right now. So you'll see right there, the note, when it interacts with one of Patty's moves, will increase the damage. It has a hitbox. It's completely like, doesn't do anything, doesn't interact with the opponent at all, until the opponent, until the opponent actually, until you actually set it off with the notes. Okay, so that's just one example, right? You can put up to 8 Prelude keys on the stage. Needless to say, Patty is very meter dependent, right? Because she needs, I think, 20% meter to set a note, and she needs meter moves to actually set them off. So that's basic, that's like one, it's one way to set them off, right? She has a specific special called the Eternal Harp that costs 50 meter. It's back, forward, forward, light. You saw that. It sets off all the notes at once. She plays the harp, and boom, they all go off. But she has other ways to set the notes besides it just having followed her around. And the main way is a move called Sweet Tone, which is a half circle light. She sends the orb out, and the orb, once again, by itself, doesn't actually do anything. But while it's out, you can start placing notes, right? The other thing it can do is, if you do another half circle light, you can create this, you see that right there? That itself, again, does not interact with the opponent, but it sets off all the notes around it. And every note will set off another note. So that's kind of the crux of what she does. She's a setup character, but she's a defensive setup character, right? By herself, she doesn't actually get a lot of offense. Another way she can set off the notes is with this special here, which is the half circle strong. And something you might have noticed about that special is, if you aim it towards the walls, it'll bounce off. So you can play a lot of tricks with that. Like, you can set up a note, you can set up notes all over the stage, right? You got them all here, right? And then Get the gist of it, though. You send it off around something, it bounces off, and as long as it's bouncing, it's setting off other notes. It's a really cool move. Moving on from that, she actually has a projectile counter called Reverse Noise, so I'm gonna show that off for you right now. Let's see, shooter type. Very good counter. It's a very good move because in this game you're gonna be getting hit with a lot of projectiles. So the thing about that move is, even if they start up another projectile while you're doing the counter itself will eat. It will dissipate whatever projectile is coming to you once it's activated. The counter will not eat light projectiles at all, but it will eat any projectiles that actually cost meter to use. So it, again, definitely has its uses. At the very least, I haven't been able to use it against light projectiles, but again, it's very easy to pull out. Okay, moving on. We have Holy Purge, one of her strongest moves, and I would consider this like a super, in my opinion. It costs 90 meter. So you see these circles around here, these are all notes, right? So the great thing about this move is it has so much versatility. You can use it as a defensive tool because it will stop people coming in, stop projectiles. You can also use it as an offensive tool. If you manage to like hit your opponent into it, they're trapped by the projectiles you see right there. That's just basic stuff. The notes will not be set off by Holy Purge, but it is important to set up Holy Purge. It is your like probably your best neutral tool, right? And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that it does not count as wall bounces. Yeah, you can just keep bouncing back off the projectiles, but they don't stay out there forever. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier with Might, but if you get hit during an install, it goes away. Holy Purge is kind of treated in the same manner. If she gets hit during Holy Purge, the actual like Holy Purge disappears. And finally, her super is called Saint Requiem. Back, forward, forward, strong. Costs a lot of meter at 80. Now, the thing about that is, it doesn't actually do the most damage for a super. But defensively, it's one of the best supers in the game, because it will beat every projectile that's coming towards you, and it will set off any notes around it. So you can treat it kind of as a reversal super, which is not a common thing in this game. But yeah, Patty, I think, is definitely like a complicated setup character. A lot of the tiers put her closer to the bottom from what I've seen of the older ones, but I think that she's a lot stronger than people give her credit for. It's just that she's very defensive. She's not really going to get damage on offense, if you know what I mean. A lot of it is going to be defense. A lot of it's going to be setting up the notes, getting your opponent like in a situation where they're forced to eat the notes, and it's very easy to set them off. So yeah, that's it with Patty. We covered Might in the mid tier. I'm sorry if I didn't mention that. And we covered Patty. They're both lightweight, by the way, so they have lightweight strings, and that's one of the reasons she's a little weaker in the tiers, is it's very easy to knock her back. But I've seen some really good Patty play, so she's a very strong character. She's just going to take a certain kind of person to make her shine. So we're done with her. When we come back, we're going to go over Wendy, who is a returning character from the original Psychic Force. Actually, before we go over Wendy, there's something I want to clarify about Patty. So she has kind of a sound bug in this game. I'm sure you're hearing it right now, where her audio kind of breaks. And I don't know if there's a fix for it or anything like that. So I will say this: if you are playing Patty, or if you're playing against a Patty, put the soundtrack on arranged, because her arranged theme doesn't have this issue, but her arcade one does. So just something to clarify. That being said, she's still pretty cool. She's still pretty good. But if you're an audiophile, yeah, this is kind of grating. And we're back with Wendy Ryan from the original Psychic Force. Returns, a little grown up, not as much of a Genki gal this time. Seeing as her sister was killed out of existence and replaced with Might. So, Wendy is pretty... She's risky. She's the pixie character of this game. The big thing with her is she's easily the fastest character. Like her install actually gives her like a ton of speed. We'll go over that in a second. But that being said, she is a little closer to low tiers from what I've seen. But the player who won Evo Japan 2020 was a Wendy player, and he actually beat a Wong player. I believe the Wendy player's name is Takezo or something like that. I could be wrong, but I'll link the grand final in the description below. So yeah, Wendy she can die very easily, but she can get in kind of whenever she wants. She's a close range character in the sense that she can just sort of get in, but she does have space control stuff. So let's go over her moves. Standard light attack is quite good. Her strong. This move's dumb. This move's been dumb forever. Still dumb. You can aim which way it comes in on. And, you know, it'll always circle around. It's just a really cool move. A few other things she has is Air Slasher. So this is her up-close bread and butter ender from what I understand. Come on. Getting it. I got the install, but... Alright, that worked. Am I doing it wrong? I swear I was doing it earlier with no problem. Okay, there you go. So this move is called Air Slasher. It's her close range. It's her close range combo ender for when you have like the basic bread and butter at the wall. And the projectiles you see like creates a little X, and they come out either way too. So it gives a nice little hitbox in front of her. She also has Vortex Stream, which you can use to catch people doing a lot of things actually. But you don't see it a lot because it has a bit of startup, and outside of a straight line, you know, it's kind of random where they end up, but it can push your opponent really far away, or it can put them right next to you. It's entirely up to the move itself. Sylphie Dance. This is her install, and it's one of the best installs in the game, and here's why. So let's go over her dash, right? Basic neutral dash. I'm gonna go all the way from here, right? About halfway. See how far she gets with the install. I'm right there. Wendy is, like I said, she's a pixie character. She can get in whenever she wants. She can move wherever she wants. That's her best thing about her, is her move. She easily has, I think, the best movement in the game. If we're just looking at straight up movement and not like gimmicks. So yeah, that install is very important to her game plan, and it only costs 50%, so it's definitely worth it. It will disappear if she gets hit, like the other installs. She also has a teleport, Mirage Step, which again, look at that, lets her get right in on the opponent. I think you can aim it. Yeah, you can aim it. So you can, you know, you just press a button in a direction after you do the input, and so yeah, I believe it's got invulnerability. It's got a bit of startup, but and one of her long range options is the Tri-Crescent, which is a half circle. By the way, this is half circle light, and this is half circle strong. This is a Tri-Crescent. It's 3 projectiles combined. Now the interesting thing about this move is if you input the command again, it splits them up. So Wendy can do a pretty decent job of just she can be very tricky with projectiles. You know, between things like the Tri-Crescent and the Air Crescent, it's just she's got some variety. That's the spice of life. And finally, I'll go over it, but this is her super. It has its uses. It's like a space control thing, but none of the hits are guaranteed, and you'll see why in a second. It's called Earth Gale. Okay. So as you'll see, this super like blows a whole gust of wind for a period of time, and the opponent has a hard time like flying against it towards you, and you're unaffected, I believe. Yeah. Now here's the thing, all that debris that's flying on the screen, none of that's guaranteed to hit. It's completely possible that you do the super and all the debris misses your opponent completely. Um, it also costs 70% meter. You have better uses of your meter with, especially, like, not that, but like the install. You should always have the install on. Also her throw, by the way. Her throw is really good. Like, if you can get a wall bounce off that throw, she can get like a vortex stream. Come on, something good. Oh, I guess not. I don't know, thinking of the older Psychic Force, I suppose. You get the idea. So yeah, Wendy is your pixie character. She can get in whenever she wants. She can get out whenever she wants, quite frankly. With the teleport. But again, that's 50% meter. That's just good. Her damage is not the best, but it's just her speed is good. So yeah, if you want to play a pixie character, if you like characters like Chip, or, you know, like Milia in Guilty Gear, or something like Ibuki, I guess, in Street Fighter, she would be your go-to. She's, like I said, even though she's considered lower tier, the guy who won Evo Japan used her and did a pretty good job. So yeah, next up we're going to be covering Genshin. So we'll be right back after a break. Alright, we are back with Genshin. Genshin is replacing Genma from the original game. He's a little bit better, in my opinion, because he has some more close range options. Genshin's theme, his motif, is magic. He's not a psychicer. He is a magic user. So all he uses is these talismans and spells and things like that. But he is no less of a strong character for it. He's actually really fucking cool. So let's go over, got his light here. Bit of a slow startup. It's not the best light, but, you know, it's a light. And his strong is where it's really at. This is where you want the move to be slow. So that's the Ogre Spirit, and the thing about this move is you recover in enough time to follow up with it. So one of the big themes of him is, like, he's a trap character, but he can also use his projectiles to cover his approach. So he's really, really cool. So this move, you know, you can sort of send it out from afar and just have it be around you. His other big projectile, which is really interesting, is the Thunder Rosary. So that move is, I can't really replicate it here, but if the opponent dodges that move, the Rosary will come back to you. And if it hits the opponent on the way back, it's like a boomerang, right? If it hits the opponent on the way back, it'll activate still. So it's active the whole time it's swinging. You see right here? The whole time it's swinging around like that, it's an active move. If the opponent hits you while it's coming back, though, it'll dissipate. But still, just important to know that it's still active until you get hit. Until it returns to you, so to say. Alright, next up is his big mechanic, which is the Soul Mine. Back forward light. So he can set up to 5 of these at a time, right? One of the moves he can do to interact with it is forward light. Demon Foot. So that's just one thing you can do with it, right? But if your opponent like gets knocked into it, if your opponent interacts with it in any way, wrong move. If they interact with it, if they get moved towards it, here, let's put it behind him. They'll get pushed towards you. Well, they get hit. They get hit, quite frankly, and they'll get pushed toward, you know, wherever direction away from it. So the thing about these traps is you can set up to 5 of them at all times, and because they're active, the opponent has to kind of like carefully plan their approach to you, right? This is what I mean by, like, Genshin is a trap character, and anytime that they think they're fine, you just set off a foot, you know? So it's pretty cool stuff. Genshin is also the only character, as far as I know, who actually has, like, his own burst, I guess you would say. So let me set the opponent to shoot me. Okay, so you saw that. That costs, I want to say, 70% meter. Is it? It says 70% in the FAQ, but it might be 60. But the basic gist of that move is anytime that you're knocked back, let's say you think they're going to like follow through or they're still going to be doing moves, you can do a half circle, light, and strong, or half circle dash, and it will dissipate you. You're completely invulnerable, and replace your body with these talismans that shoot out and will knock down the opponent. Now, they can plan ahead for this, but it's still an option that you have, and it's a really, really cool one. Moving on from that, we have Adamant Ring. This is one of the things that gives him a bread and butter. It's a close range attack, similar to Regina's Flare Bursts. Will catch people trying to get in on you, but it gives him a bit of bread and butter at the corner. And lastly, we're going to cover his super, which is actually a Deadly Rave, which is pretty cool. It is back, forward, forward, strong. I messed it up. So the command for it is back, forward, forward, strong, and then when the talisman hits, it's up, down, back, down, forward, up, light plus strong, guard plus light, and then all three buttons. So if you can manage that, get 350 damage, which is basic super damage, but it looks really cool. There are actually two ways to do the Neo Deadly Rave, but this end result is the same thing. But yeah, if you can, he's really cool. So if you can get accustomed to like setting up the traps and playing that kind of like pestering game with the soul mines and whatnot, Genshin's your guy. He's really cool. He's a lot of fun, and I'd strongly recommend him. I'm not entirely sure where he sits on the tier, but I will say that I have seen some very good play of Genshin, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was like upper mid or just below the high tier. So when we come back, we will cover Burn, and that'll be part 1 of this character guide. Finishing off with the OG, the original main character of Psychic Force before he was moved aside in favor of Light and made a boss character in this game. You know what? In a lot of ways, he's all the better for it. Burn is another character who wants to get in, do damage. Of all the characters we talked about previously, I would say, yeah, Wendy, Might, and Burn are like the three like close-ups, whereas Patty and Genshin play the more far-range game. Burn is especially like close-up, like he gets in. Let's go over his buttons, right? So he's basic light attack, basic strong attack, right? He actually, it's similar to Regina's. The difference is he can't split it like she can. So he doesn't really have any interaction with his strong attack. Moving on to his other specials, he has back, forward, light. Just like Regina, Spark Rain. His has a little bit better startup. I believe hers has slightly better damage, but his has a little bit better startup. He has forward, light, which is a kind of better version of Might's Lightning Hound. Actually, I don't even know what this move's called, but it's sick as hell. We'll get over it later, but it's forward, light, and I'm going to show you just how far he can go. Yeah, he will travel the whole screen until he hits you. That's the kind of guy Burn is. He's going to get in. 319 damage, that's not bad. I do believe that it can beat out projectiles. I could be wrong, but let me pull that up real quick. Come on. Yeah. Okay, so that's called Burning Trail. Flies toward the opponent in flames. It might be projectiles, I'm not sure. But I know that it just gets the hell in. It looks cool. It costs 40 meter. Exploder is his version of Spark Rain. We just went over that. And he has a half circle move called Burst Hand. Bit of a slow startup, but you can combo into it in the corner. That being said, I think he has a better combo in the corner. Yeah. I'm sure he does for good meter. So that was Burst Hand. Then there's Triangle Heat. This move used to go like damn near all the way, right? This is one of the best moves in the game, even still, because Burn can get in. It is half circle strong, and then you input it again to cause an explosion. If you don't input it, it just freezes your opponent in place, right? But the damage is scaled so heavily, you should always go for the explosion. Besides, look how cool he looks doing it. He's so cool. So Triangle Heat is such a fantastic move, and part of the reason is the hitbox is so big, right? It's a great move to just cover approaches and things like that. It's always been good. It's just that the range is reduced. That's all. Then there's his install, which is Nova Flare, which is back, forward, forward, light. And this changes his strong to the slightly more damage. So the strong regularly does 180. But the install version of it, which comes out faster, moves faster, does 210, 30 more points. But as you can see, it drains his meter. And I believe that any move he does, will also drain the meter. But it is a good install, all things considered. It's just you want to be careful. So not always, you don't want to use it in every situation, but there are going to be matchups where you're more likely to use it. Finally, he has God Phoenix. Does good damage. You're really only going to do this in bread and butter moves, bread and butter combos. It's back, forward, forward, and strong. So that's pretty much it for Burn. Burn is one of those characters who, like, he's just all in your face. God. That's super damage. Look at that. They made him a hidden character in this game. I wonder why. So yeah, he got buffed fairly well. So yeah, Burn. One of the things about Burn is like he kind of makes it like Might is not as good as Burn. Regina is not as good as Burn. Those two characters are basically trying to do the same things that he does. He's just much better at it. And he looks cool as hell, even with that dumb rooster haircut of his. But yeah, that's it. That's the first part of the character guide. The second part will be covering the Noah characters, which is Regina, Carlo, Gates, and Keith. And then the third part will be covering the army characters with Setsuna, Gudeth, Emilio, and Wong. So, you guys have a good one. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me right here in the comments or hit me up on Twitter. So have a good night, guys.